teach you how to make notes, and how to make notes not just on a hard copy, but also if you want to make it in a laptop or any other device which you want to use. So both ways you will get an idea about what kind of skills you really need to have, what kind of things you really need to keep in mind when you're making notes. So let's go ahead and dive into how to make notes. So first of all, I think you need to know is whether you should make notes or not. Whether to make notes or not. Is it important to make notes or is it not important to make notes? Well, the answer is both yes and no. First of all, I'll answer for why yes, why you should make notes. Well, notes help you to revise, they help you to organize, they help you to remember more better. So the habit that I had, my personal habit was that whenever I was studying, let's say I'm studying medieval history or I'm studying ancient history, while studying I used to make notes in my either on a page, or I used to make notes on the software on Evernote that I was using at that time. But that doesn't mean that you have to do that. That was my personal habit. A lot of people just like to study from the book and then they can come back to it later, because a lot of students, what they also do is, let's say in medieval history, I'll give you an example, they make notes on the sides of the book. So like here I have made some notes on the side of the book or on the margins of the book. So a lot of students do that also. So that is also one of the note taking skills. But whether or not to make notes, it really helps you to revise, organize and remember. So if you are a kind of student who likes to go to shorter version of things towards the end of the exam, instead of looking at the entire books, like normally a lot of people also look at entire books, then you should have notes. Okay, otherwise it will become very difficult for you to revise, and which is very important because UPSC syllabus is very vast. So unless you have good notes from where you can revise quickly, you will not be able to score very well in the UPSC exam. Secondly, why no? It is a very tedious exercise, takes a lot of time, and you might end up making notes which are basically the entire book only. So you are not making good notes. If you are making good notes, it is very important to know how to make good notes. If you are making notes, it is very important to know how to make good notes. But if you are not making notes, then you are at a little bit of a disadvantage, because self-study is harder when you are not making notes. Self-study is a little harder when you are not making notes. So it's a tedious exercise, it takes a lot of time, and you might end up making a lot of notes which are useless, but that is not a reason you should not make notes. You should learn how to make notes, which I will teach you in this particular class, and then perhaps it will be of a useful purpose. Okay, so whether to make notes or not, these are the two things that I would like to say to you. Now, third thing, if notes are already available in the market, like let's say for example, I have shared my polity notes, I have shared my art and culture notes. You can find it on my community tab. So if I have already shared, I have also shared my management notes. If some topper has already made a lot of notes, if they are available in the market through coaching institutes, should you be making notes? Well, my answer for that is no. If you like the notes that are available already out there, what you can do is use those notes, and when you're studying you can add your own notes to them. So you can add your small comments on the side, because these are already in notes format. Maybe the author or the person who made these notes missed a few things. So what you can do is use these same notes and add a few things to those notes. So that will really help you. That being said, I don't think you really need to make notes for a lot of subjects anymore. Like polity, I have provided very good notes. Art and culture, I have provided good notes. Management, I have provided good notes. Similarly, they have provided some other notes also. You can use them and add to them. But in case you feel those are not sufficient or you don't like them, then you go about making notes, because that will help you more. But if you think those notes are decent, then you don't need to make notes. Just add your own little things, and that way it will become perfect. So that's the strategy I used. I actually found Nitin Singhania sir's online notes, offline notes. He had made these notes by hand for art and culture, which eventually became very popular. So I downloaded them, printed them out, and then I used them as my notes. But then I added a few things to it. I made my own notes because I felt that I could add a little more to that. So similarly you can do that, and for every student it's a little different. Alright, so this is how you should think about whether not to or to make notes. Here I have a notebook with me. So what you need to do is understand why you need to make notes. What is the purpose of notes? See, the purpose of notes is really to be able to revise well and to be able to organize your studies. These are the two things that you really want to do when you are trying to make notes. You want to revise really well and you want to be able to organize your entire studies for UPSC. To achieve both these, what you need to do is, first of all, create a system of making notes. What does that mean? What do you mean by system of making notes? That is, you need to have a different notebooks for all the notes that you are making. You need to have different notebooks and they should be well organized. So what I mean by this is, for example, I have this one notebook. I should use this one notebook, only this one notebook, maybe add later more notebooks if I need to for one subject. Let's say history, or let's say geography, or let's say if you want to use it for your optional, and optional also is 1 and 2, and then it has different subjects in it. So you want to use different notebooks and different registers for different kind of notes. Similarly, online you want to do the same thing. You want to have different online folders for different subjects, and that is how you should make notes for them. So this is very simple, and for each of them you should have a table of contents or index, right, where you should just make a list of things that are available in the notes. Or what you can do is also, if you don't want to make a table of contents, if that's too much of your work, then what you can also do is just have stickies, and you can stick those stickies wherever the chapter is. So if the first chapter, let's say you have made notes on Constitution of India, and then the second one is center-state relations, the third one is rights, the fourth one is duties. So that way you can just put the stickies, and that way here or on the top you can put the stickies. That way you will remember where what is, and you can quickly go to that. That is true for hard copy notes. But if you are making notes, let's say on some online device, let's say Notability or Evernote, these are the softwares most commonly used for making notes, then you can just do a quick search, or you can title your particular folder or your particular file as that particular subject, so that will be easy to go through later. So this is what I used to do as well. I used to make a table of contents and which page that particular note was on, because paging really helps, because later on you will be revising, and you will be revising it in a period of 1 to 2 hours, so you won't have that much time to really spare. So this is the system of making notes that you want to organize. And to organize, what you need to do is create table of contents with pages in the file or in the register that you're working with, and you also want to have notes topic wise. Alright, now what I also implore you to do is, what I also encourage you to do is that don't just make notes in categories of these big subjects. Let's say history. Within history you have art and culture, and within art and culture you might have Indus Valley civilization, you might have Ashoka period, Gupta period, right? You have all these different kind of subtopics. So what you need to do is, let's say you are studying ancient history, or let's say you are studying medieval history. We can take the medieval history book here. So first of all, you know that you are going to study this book for medieval history. This is the NCERT book from class 11th that I have recommended for this particular subject. So what you need to do is go through the table of contents. Okay, these are the table of contents that are given, and identify what are the major topics that you will be covering, and accordingly make notes. Don't just jump into the book and directly start making notes. What you need to do is just first of all identify what are the major things you will be going through. See, here I have highlighted Chola Empire, cultural life. So you know you will be making notes, or at least you will be studying this part. So then it will be easier for you to make notes. Now that being said, so now let us discuss what kind of things you should remember while you are making notes, to think or to add while making notes. Okay, while you are making notes, what kind of things you should remember, or more importantly, see, if you are making any kind of history notes, anything to do with history, then in that case you need to include some major key figures, major names of major figures. Okay, then you need to include the time frame. You don't need to remember exact dates. Let me tell you, you don't need to remember exact dates for UPSC, like exact dates. You can only focus on certain time frames and maybe a little the events that are very very important. For that you can remember dates. For example, you don't need to remember when Gandhiji was born, but you should remember the time frame of his life, that in which period where he was in South Africa, then he came back to India, in around in which years he launched different kind of movements in India. So that is important. Okay, so major names of major figures, time frame, or in some cases you should remember the years also, but not very much. This is not important. You should just know roughly what time frame it was. Then you should also remember some major causes or reasons, alright, for those particular events that are happening in history. Similarly, that would hold true for polity also, that would hold true for any other subject, let's say environment, let's say economics. If you are studying a particular concept, you should know the what, the why, the how, and the when of that particular concept. Alright, only then you will be able to do justice to that concept. So remember to include these things in your notes in shorthand. What that means is that every definition, every concept, you should be able to pretty much summarize in 2-3 sentences. Not more than 3-4 sentences should be needed to summarize a particular concept or a definition, because if you take it more than that, then it will not really help you. So for example, if UPSC has asked about some kind of geographical concept, let's say that geographical concept is a ring of fire, then you should be able to summarize this geographical concept. Then you should be able to summarize this geographical concept in 3-4 lines or sentences at the most, along with appropriate examples wherever necessary. So focus on that. That is what UPSC's focus is, and that is what you should focus on. Alright. So that is one of the things that I wanted to tell you, that focus on concepts for different things and focus on what, why, how, when of these concepts. And in case there is history, for history you should remember the major names, you should remember the when or the timelines, and you should also remember the where, because these are the small data or facts that will help you to actually stand out a little bit in the paper which you are writing. You don't want your answers to be entirely generic. You want to give references to time periods, you want to give references to personalities, you want to give references to conceptual keywords. So that's where I'm going next. What is the other thing that is super important? The other thing that is super important for any kind of notes is keywords. Keywords are very very important. Alright. You should ensure that for every concept you are studying, you should know the keywords of that concept. So let's say we are studying polity, and in polity we are studying the concept of justice, the concept of, let's say, rights. So in this we should know some examples, and we should also know the keywords that are used in the books, so that we can actually enhance our particular answer. So for example, let's say let me take economy, and for economy what I will do is I will go to a chapter of inflation, or let's go to poverty. Okay, now in this I don't think you need to know very detailed things about a lot of concepts, but here what you should know when you are doing any kind of note making is, let's say we are studying Amartya Sen's capability approach on poverty. This is a very important topic in concept. You should know this as a UPSC aspirants. So in that you should know the keywords. if you go through the definition, and if you go through the definition, then you will see the capability approach is a people focused approach. The author here has highlighted this. So you should know these keywords. It's a people focused approach, and it focuses on enhancing people's well-being by expanding their capabilities so that they can lead the life they value. Now you don't need to memorize this, but you should know the keywords, that capabilities are all about people and how to expand their capabilities, how to increase their standard of life, how to increase their well-being in life. So the keywords being well-being, people focus, right? And after that, when we go into the elements, there is freedom element and there is capabilities and functioning elements. These keywords you should remember. And this is how you should study as well. This will make your studying also easier if you think like this. You should focus on the concept. The concept is clear in your mind, but you need to remember only the keywords for the actual exam. Because if the concept is clear in your mind, you can answer anything, any question asked about that concept. So that is the key in UPSC. If you want to do answer writing well, understand the concept really well, and after that focus on remembering some keywords of the topics that are mentioned in the UPSC syllabus, and that way it will become super easy for you to study. And that is how I used to also make notes. So now I have told you the importance of keywords, I have given you an example. Let us make a few notes and show you how exactly notes are made so that you can actually make notes like that. Okay, this will take 2 minutes. So I have Medieval India. I picked this because this is the hardest book to read and hardest book to make notes from. And we will just jump to something more substantial, that is the Vijayanagar Empire. Okay, because questions come from the Vijayanagar Empire. It's one of those parts of the histories that a lot of us are not very aware about, but it was very, very important. Okay, so here is the age of the Vijayanagara and the Bahmanids in the coming of the Portuguese. So time frame is around this. So now how I would make notes. Alright, how would I make notes? Topic is age of, or simply you can write Vijayanagar Empire. Now how do I make it simple for me? I'm not going to really put this topic entirely as what is given here. I'm not going to put Bahmanids, I'm not going to put coming of the Portuguese. I will treat those two as different notes. Here I'm going to only talk about Vijayanagar Empire because this is important from UPSC perspective. Timeline. So you can put here, timeline is around 1350 to 1565 AD. Alright, so that will help you to remember around what time this was happening. Around 1300 to 1600, 1650. So that's a easy way to remember it. Now I will go into the details. I've started reading. The Vijayanagar and the Bahmani kingdom dominated India south of Vindhyas for more than 200 years. This is already given. Now you can make a small map. Let's say this is India. Okay, this is a very bad map, but try to please just bear with me. Or you can actually have an actual map printed out and you can put it on the next page. And then later when you read through it, you can figure out where was the Bahmani kingdom actually, in which parts of India. I don't think it's given in the chapter in a map. So what you do is you Google it. This is how you should think about studying. Okay, so you Google it, that what area was the Vijayanagar Empire in. Once you Google it, you will be able to find it on some map given on Google image, and then you can mark that this is the Vijayanagar Empire, this is the extent of the Vijayanagar Empire. Okay, that way you will remember better. Then you should go into more details. They not only built magnificent capitals and cities and beautified them with many splendid buildings and promoted arts and letters, but also provided for law and order and development of commerce and handicrafts. So key features. Now this is the introduction, and in the introduction itself they have given the key features of the kingdom. So how do you need to? You just write magnificent capitals, urban development, because it says here cities. So you can think, how would UPSC like to understand it from your perspective? See, you should give a broader vision that they had urban development even in that day. Buildings, okay, arts, Letters, what does letters mean? It means literature. All right. And then law and order, and commerce and handicrafts, arts and letter. Handicrafts you can put in arts and arts only, I think, and then you can put here commerce. So there was a lot of business happening at that time. All right. So these are the major features, and now you know these major features of the Vijayanagar Empire, and you can always answer a lot of the questions by reading more about this particular time of history in India. So now you go further into studying about the Vijayanagar Empire. You will see, thus while the forces of disintegration gradually triumphed in North India, so that means North India was disintegrating, South India and Deccan had a long spell of stable governments. So at this time, North India disintegrating because there were a lot of invasions and all that, but South India prospered during this period. All right, so now you've done that. So similarly, I feel like you can make notes in these kind of points so that you can remember, and in shorthand. You don't need to write every line. This ended with disintegration of Bahmani Empire towards the end of the 15th century and of the Vijayanagar Empire more than 50 years later after its defeat. No need to write this because this will come later in the chapter, because this is just the introduction. Alright, so after you read the introduction and noted down important points, then you come to the Vijayanagar Empire, foundation and conflict with the Bahmani kingdom. Now this is about their conflict and their foundation. Later, so I told you, when you're reading any chapter, first go through the subtopics of the chapter. The Bahmani kingdom, then it goes through Mahmud Gawan, climax of Vijayanagar Empire and disintegration. Alright, Portuguese, this can be completely different notes, that how Portuguese came to India and so. Alright, so Vijayanagar found, this is the first subtopic about Vijayanagar Empire. It was founded by Harihar and Bukka, who belonged to a family of 5 brothers. This is important. So now here you need to write Vijayanagar Empire founding. Harihara and Bukka brothers. Okay, you write written down the, and you can also write brothers. According to a legend, they had been the feudatories of the Kakatiyas of the Warangal and later became ministers in the kingdom of Kamili in modern Karnataka. I don't think that's very important. So this is how you need to recognize what facts are important for GS and what are not. This is a story that is happening, so just remember the story, but write down only important things in your notes. When Kampili was overrun by Muhammad Tughlaq for giving refuge to Muslim rebel, the 2 brothers were imprisoned, converted to Islam and appointed to deal with the rebellions there. The Muslim governor of Madurai had already declared himself independent, and the Hoysala ruler of Mysore and the ruler of Warangal were also trying to assert their independence. After a short time, Harihara and Bukka forsook their new master and their new faith. At the instance of their guru, Vidyaranya, they were readmitted to Hinduism and established their capital at Vijayanagara. So basically, you know that they were captured, they were converted, but then they gave up their old faith and they readmitted back to Hinduism by Vidyaranya, and they established the capital at Vijayanagara. So the whole sources established capital at Vijayanagara after initial years of imprisonment and conversion by Muhammad Tughlaq. Now if this is confusing to you, what you can do is go online, Google, search, and then you will be able to get a better understanding. Look at a video of Vijayanagar Empire. Alright, so this entire thing is easily summarized in 2-3 points here. Alright, so similarly you go ahead and keep making notes of the Vijayanagar Empire. So this is how you make notes, folks. I hope you understand from the examples that I have given. Remember 2-3 things that I have already told you, that notes are very important because you want to be able to revise, organize and remember. But if you think they're tedious, they take too much of time, then you should think about how to efficiently make notes, because they're critical for self-study. And for some things you don't need to really make notes, which is already the notes are available online, or some books are already in notes format. So this is my advice to you, and this will really help you in the UPSC exam.